Welcome to Mike's on Mike, a conversation about politics, government, and Jacksonville. Join 50-year opinion leaders Mike Hightower, Mike Tolbert, and award-winning broadcaster and longtime political observer, Mike Miller.
Hello once again, and welcome to Mike's on Mike. I'm Mike Miller, along with Mike Hightower here in studio, and of course Mike Tolbert is still shoveling you-know-what out at the farm in Brooksville. So we are all here with you, some in person and some online. Good afternoon, guys. Nice to have you here.
Some of us shovels, you know what, on the farm, and some of us do it in downtown.
Sometimes in the studio. By the way, just for the sake of those people who are watching, I want to make sure people understand that we try to stay on top of things. Today is October the 31st. Happy Halloween. You're not seeing this on Halloween, but I hope you had enough candy to last you forever. But we're taping it on Halloween Day, and happy to be here and happy to have you with us. Thank you very much. No guest today. It's going to be the three of us once again, but we have an awful lot of meaty issues to get into today. We're going to be talking about some things that, well, have been going on at City Hall that call into question. And if it's okay, I'm going to shoot things over to Mike Tolbert here for a moment and let him introduce this first topic. Mike?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. You know, when Mayor Deegan was sworn in less than 4 months ago, she said it was going to be a new day in Jacksonville's government. But then we've learned since then and recently that the mayor's office has awarded a $300,000 no-bid contract to a donor named Mike Langton. The contract is for lobbying and grant writing consulting services. There are several problems with this that I think we ought to talk about as background, if nothing else. One is the mayor's office said that it had done a search and could not find any other firm in the United States of America that qualified, only Langton in Jacksonville.
You should be charging a lot more than he's the only person in America.
Yeah. And the person and the staff member who said that is a lady named Norris, Brittany Norris. She's the director of intergovernmental affairs for the mayor. She said she had Googled. That was her research. She had Googled and couldn't find any other firms. But the Times Union, on the other hand, found several firms, including a firm out of Washington that already represents 17 counties and cities in Florida for the same services that Langton is doing. This smells to me, and I don't know that anybody did anything illegal or intended to, but it stinks because it shows the inexperience that the mayor has surrounded herself with. I mean, anybody with any brains should have known that this was going to cause a problem. I mean, it's like the train going off the tracks. And that concerns me. It feeds the cynicism that people have already about government and about political leaders. It's like the more we change, the more we stay the same. I mean, we thought we had a new day in Jacksonville, and that this mayor, unlike the last mayor, was not going to gift her friends. That seems to have changed, and I'm upset about it. And I'm sure some other people are upset about it. It's interrupted her. It's the kind of mistake that gets you off track, that causes you to lose focus. And I worry about her staff. I really do worry about her staff and some of the judgment. I worry about her judgment and letting this happen. I wonder if no one put a red light out and said, whoa. Think about this, guys. This is going to cause us a problem. Or if somebody did that on the staff and the mayor just ignored it.
If I can jump in on this, I'm trying to recall the years, of course, that I was in the mayor's office, and I was on the senior staff, so I attended all of the mayor's meetings that we would have, most mornings, as a matter of fact. And when we had that group of people sitting around in the large conference room, we would vet these kinds of things with the senior staff. And there were plenty of times when either it was Audrey Moran, who was the chief of staff at the time, or it would be Sam, who was the CAO, Sam Musa, or Rick Mullaney, who was our lawyer, or Cindy Lacodera. Somebody would point out Hold on a minute here, John.
Mike Munns.
Well, Michael had left by the time I had gotten there, but nevertheless, we had some pretty good brain power that was in that room. You noticed I didn't put my name in that, but nevertheless, we would have had somebody in that room raising the hand and saying, "Hold on a minute, why are we doing this, and are we sure it's kosher?"
Yeah, I see.
Well,
I see this.
Go ahead, Hector.
I know we're supposed to only give perceptions and observations, but this really ticks me off, and on 4 levels. Number one, it's going to be somewhat redundant to what Mike said, but number one is it's obvious the staff doesn't know what they don't know. It underscores part 1A of that is what all of us have, but Mike Tolbert and I have said. People who run campaigns, you bring them inside, they don't necessarily understand government. Most of the people she has around them were in the campaign. I get it. I understand loyalty. Spent 54 years doing this stuff. I understand it. But you got to make a decision. Number 2, I'm upset with Mike Langton. Mike Langton has been around a long time. He was part of the contributors. I understand that. But let me tell you, for them to say that they Googled all that, Mike Langton's been doing, quote, lobbying a long time. Mm-hmm. He should have looked after this for the person that he helped, and that was the mayor. What happened was, from my perception, is he took advantage of a small contribution, knew what he was doing, and he now has got a $300,000 contract, but he's put her at risk. Number 3, the part that really gets me is that all we've done, to what Mike Langton has said, is there was this hope from a whole lot of people, Democrat, Republican, independents, and a lot of donors who said she was going to do it differently. It's not going to be what it was.
Business as usual.
Business as usual. And then the 4th thing that it really bothers me is it really ticks me off to see people through stupidity or ego or they don't know what they don't know is waste political capital. And in this case, the political capital belongs to Donna Deegan because her name was on the ballot. None of the staff was on the ballot. Mike Langton wasn't on the ballot. Donna Deegan. It is her political capital that they are wasting. And then the 5th one, which I just thought of, is they have just handed the former administration, the former people that she said ran against, she has just said, I'm no different than them. So for 5 good reasons, Donna Deegan is the person who's taking the hit on this. And I'll shut up.
I think one of the things that...
Well, some interesting things about this deal is that the part of the contract calls for federal lobbying.
Right.
But Langton has nobody with his consulting company that is registered to do any of that. So they're hiring a firm in Washington, D.C. to associate with them. I don't know. But the 2 reasons that they give, again, number 1 reason is there was nobody else in the United States of America that was qualified and could meet this proposal. And then later on, another staff member said, well, the reason we did it like we did it and didn't follow the rules and didn't follow procedures is because we were facing federal grant deadlines and we needed to not let the money stay on the table. Well, which one is it? Is it the fact that there was no other firm or the fact that they had to do it because they wanted to chase the federal dollars? And she did say when she was sworn in that one of her goals is to pull down federal dollars. But that is still, the rules are there for a reason. Procedures are there for a reason. And if you're going to violate those or ignore those, you better have a damn good excuse for doing it. And I don't think they do. Well, I want to say one more thing, Mike Miller. Wait, let me say one more thing. Going back to what some of Hightower's comments about staff.
Yep.
We heard early on, I did, and I'm sure you all did, that the chief of staff of Mayor Deegan had cut off communication between staff members. That if one staff member wanted to talk to, for instance, Karen Bolin, the chief administrative officer, that person had to get permission from the chief of staff, a retired Marine Master Sergeant, and God bless her for serving our country. But I think they're going to implode up there if something doesn't get fixed around that.
Well, Mike, on that point, and you and I and of course now Mike with Delaney. But you and I have been through. You started out with Tanzer, and thanks to you, I got to know Jake. Every one of these mayors, at some point, usually at 6 months, they end up having a retreat to talk kind of about where are we. We're coming up on 6 months. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to make a leap of faith here. I'm probably suggesting, the three of us are suggesting them, they damn well better think about having a retreat and start looking and doing some perspectives about, are we serving her, and is it time for us to step back and say, have we done our job so she can do her job? But 6 months is coming up, and Mike, you know this better than anyone, and you've helped a lot of them get themselves when they stepped in it, and you've always said, at 6 months, you better take a hard look, correct?
Correct.
Well, one thing we can say that, and the three of us have said this on a number of occasions, and we can say it again, and that is, who the hell is she listening to? We have no idea who those kitchen cabinet advisors are. We never hear from them. I think we all know maybe one person, but I don't think that he necessarily is involved that intimately to be able to guide in situations like this. But we don't know who that is, and that's kind of weird, because I think both of us, if you think back to who was Delaney's advisors, I knew who those were very well. Obviously, I worked with them, but it was very well known throughout the community who his advisors were. I think you know who Peyton's advisors were. Certainly.
We knew who Ed's were. We knew who Alvin. Jake.
We just don't know who is advising the current mayor.
And the staff needs to understand there is one person that was on the ballot, Donna Deegan, not the staff.
That's correct.
And they should be asking every morning, am I doing what I should be doing to move her agenda forward and not what I think makes me look good? Because obviously what they're thinking is not moving her agenda, and now they're being viewed as nothing that is any different behavior or perceived ethics-wise than the administration that she just ran against.
Let me bring up my old broadcasting, I guess, career, because this is something I would do if I had the resources for it. If they're going to give the reasoning for the deadlines for these grants to be applied for, I'd love to see someone from the Times-Union, from News4Jax, from First Coast News, from Action News Jax, from somebody get into this and say which ones of those that we have applied for were running close to deadline for filing, so that we can see whether or not that was a legitimate reason. And that should have been a part of any story that was written about this, to say which ones are you talking about that were up for a deadline or close to a deadline, and we had to get somebody in there real quickly to be able to do it.
Yeah,
we need to find those things out, and we need investigative journalism for things like this.
Listen, I understand, and all of us understand how it works. We have a Democratic administration. She is a Democratic mayor, though she is the mayor for the whole city. Everybody understands that if she's trying to go and get money from our tax money out of Washington, you look for that. But let me tell you, Alvin Brown, Jake, they they knew who those people were. And Mike, I think you brought up the right thing. I believe that at least one, if not two of the consultants that they passed over have helped us before. If not at the port, I think they also helped us. They helped the mayor's office. So those people are well known to us.
Yep. Okay. Well, I think we've beaten this to death, at least for now.
And probably don't be surprised if none of the three of us get invited to the mayor's Christmas party.
Yeah, there goes the holiday party invitation.
One more note. They could have accomplished the same thing.
Oh yeah.
By going out for requests for proposals,
of course,
and let other people submit proposals, or other firms submit proposals, and then if Langton's was the best one,
you choose it,
and they wanted him to have the deal, then the mayor can pick him. But at least they opened up the process to do it like it was supposed to be done.
Well,
and that wasn't here.
Well,
it wasn't done here, and then. I mean, again, I go back to this Google search. That doesn't make sense to me, and I don't want to pick on this lady, Brittany Norris, but according to what I've read, she was a design and communications professional. So I don't think she has any depth of background in intergovernmental affairs in the mayor's office. I don't know what she calls on for experience in that kind of a job. I just don't understand.
Well, Mike, to your point, and we all know how that process works when you're going out, when you're bidding something. I mean, but what you do, there is a sense of transparency. But there's nothing to say that Langton could not have partnered with someone from Alvin's administration or Delaney's administration, or pick one, John Payton, and said, and that could have been there. And then when you, as you all know, as it moves down, and you get there, you can switch them around. But to pick someone that he doesn't even know from South Florida, so what we're doing is $300,000 of Duval County's tax money is going to be there, which is then going to go to South Florida. And I totally. Listen, Jacksonville has always been very good working with our congressional delegation and our two senators, whoever they were, to get money from that. We didn't need to go to South Florida to get a consultant.
Let's move over to the other side of the fourth floor. Considering we've beaten up on the mayor's office enough, so now let's go over to the city council and talk to them a little bit about some of the...
So much for not editorializing.
Well, these are observations. These are just observations based on business that's already gone by and taken place, and we're talking about some of the budgetary items. And some of the city council members who are a little close for comfort, in our observation, excuse me, I almost said opinion.
Or perceptions.
Or perceptions. By not following what has been standard procedure when it comes to any kind of financial allotments towards nonprofits. And I think that's a topic that also needs to be raised again.
Oh, no question.
You want to start that off again,
Kind of
Mr.
like
Tolbert?
the foxes. Yeah, it's kind of like the foxes are in the hen house. You know, to give you a little background, in September, late September 2021, around 11 p.m. at night, at a city council meeting, the council voted to give $500,000 to a nonprofit run by one of its members, Reginald Gaffney.
Mm-hmm.
Senior. Yeah.
In that, this senior. And earlier in that meeting, the council had already given away $100,000 each to three different other nonprofits run by council members. None of those four grants, all that money, followed city policy or procedures. The council just waived all the rules and gave it to them. Right after that happened, Councilman Rory Diamond, who also at that time was running a nonprofit,
who got money from us,
introduced legislation to stop that kind of stuff, to make sure that all nonprofits for council members had to go through a competitive bidding process. It passed. But despite that, in 2022, the council voted to extend the deadline from July to October 7th for nonprofits to apply for grants, and it was a move that benefited council member Reggie Gaffney Senior, Reggie Gaffney Sr., another $98,000 for one of his nonprofits. And then this year, when the city council was passing the city budget, it slipped $400,000 in there for a nonprofit run by Jacoby Pittman, who was an earlier recipient of $300,000 another time, with Jacoby Pittman and Nick Howland, chairman of the Finance Committee. And what they did was they didn't include it in the regular budget. They had a special piece of legislation that they passed on an emergency basis. So they're just passing out money to each other. These council members recuse themselves from the vote. Well, so who cares? They all pass. They get the money. And I don't understand it. It's beyond me. And I go back to the same question I've asked before. Where the hell is the watchdog? Where the hell is the state attorney? How does this stuff just keep going on? And they pass a rule, they pass an ordinance or legislation to stop it, and they find another way to get inside. So I don't know.
Well, not just the state attorney, but I would also ask about our ethics officer. I mean, I had a lot of dealings with Carla Miller when Carla was in there. I'm not even sure who the ethics officer is right now. Do you happen to know, Tolbert?
No,
I don't either.
No, I don't have any
But
idea.
wouldn't that be a position that would raise their hand and say, "Hold on a minute,
Yeah.
this is totally contrary to what our proper procedure is"?
Well, and just to finish the loop of the
Okay.
former conversation,
Okay.
if you remember when this thing came up about this no bid contract with Langton for $300,000, who was the city councilman that said it doesn't smell right? Rick Holland, who got
Nick Holland.
Nick Holland, who put it in as the finance chairman in this last budget at the last minute. So if something doesn't smell right, that smell goes both ways. I mean, so be real. What's the old expression? Don't throw stones if you live in a glass house.
Yeah.
And then we want to know, and we talked about it at the very first about this program's all about. We want to know why there is two reasons. Why there's a cynicism in government, and number two, why we can't find people who want to run for government, who want to run for public service. Because they say, how I'm going to be perceived because of this stuff that goes on. It's ridiculous. So when people say, well, we don't have good people running,
I think
it's ridiculous.
I think I think the different kind of council members now than they have been in the past. I mean, right now we're loaded with people who run nonprofit organizations who are receiving money from the city. My memory is that in past city councils, there has been a preponderance of business leaders, business owners, people who actually are involved in capital out there. And they bring a different set of experiences to the table than nonprofits. I mean, if you're running a nonprofit, you spend 24 hours a day hustling money. And that's mostly what you do, I think. And so I guess these nonprofit leaders on the city council are just doing what comes natural to them. They're hustling for money.
Yeah. So what about the hundreds of other nonprofits out there that are having to do it, who do incredible work to help incredible needy people who are being challenged? We talk about at the national level, there's two tiers of law. Well, two tiers of how we look at things. We got two tiers of rules here. And I'm going to tell you, this is one of those things. This new council, the leadership on the council, and this mayor's office strongly suggests, guys and gals, 6 months, y'all better take a retreat and think about how you're being perceived. Now, if you want to continue with it, that's fine. But when you run for re-election, you better make sure that when you're saying it's a new day and I have been a good steward of trust, transparency, and the taxpayers' money, make sure that you can defend it. Just an observation.
One thing I would like to throw in here, which is aside from both of the topics that we've talked about so far this morning or this afternoon, whatever time you're watching this, and that is the trip to England and the perceived
hypocrisy.
Well, no, I wasn't going to say that. Actually, what I was going to say is that I think that that the idea of how much money it cost for the mayor to go over there and all the rest of that stuff is the biggest non-story of her administration in the first 100 days or 100 and some odd days. I think it's absolutely ridiculous to focus on this. When they do a comparison to previous mayors who took their trips to England as well, and even though the money was less, it was 8 years ago. And 10 years ago. Why don't you tell us what those dollars would have been in today's dollars rather than saying, well, she spent $5,900 it cost for her trip, and with them it was only, she was 71, I'm sorry. Pardon me. Let me get this down here. Her cost of this was $5,937 was what it was. And others were like, $7,100 under Alvin Brown. $5,300 in 2014 for Lenny Curry's first year. How many years ago was that? And what were the dollars worth then compared to what they are today? Plus, I'll bet you nobody was busier than she was when she was over in England.
Well, let me clarify when I said hypocrisy. Some of the same people that we just talked about who were throwing rocks, and criticizing her
Yeah.
are the ones that we were just talking about. You better be careful what you say. Let me go back to this trip.
Sure.
Let me tell you, having had that opportunity.
Have
Jake
you gone on that trip before?
I've gone on those trips. I
Okay.
was there with Jake. I went there with Ed, wearing my Blue Cross hat. Under Delaney, was there with John Payton. When we went to China, a lot of other places. When you've got the mayor there, and I think she took 2 people, however it was, I can tell you, having sat in those meetings with a lot of other people, the mayor is sitting there with whoever they're talking to. There's one person, the mayor cannot take notes. Let's hope that. And there was another reason why most of the time we had at least 2 people with the mayor, I can remember, is you had one person there watching the body language and watching what was being said and who said it so that the mayor could concentrate on having the negotiation.
Sure.
This is the business of politics is business. And for them to nickel dime this thing, you can't have her both ways. They say they want her to go and be pro-business and bring business, but then they want her to go on the cheap. It's just like what we talked about, a couple episodes together. Everybody's thing is we nickel dime everything, but then we'll go out and spend billions of dollars for something else. You can't have them both ways. If you want to have the city's CEO over there negotiating to bring business here, then treat them like a CEO and allow them to have that. But having 2 people, those people had a job to do while she did her job. And
Ed Randolph is the director of our Office of Economic Development.
Absolutely.
Why would he not be there? He needs to be there. And Melissa Ross, who's really her right-hand person, I was going to say man, but person, she's the note taker. She's the one who's making sure that everything is running on time. I mean, she was the central to making sure that she was on schedule and doing what she was supposed to be doing and reporting back. She was tweeting the entire time that she was over there.
Yeah. Mike, we interrupt you as we normally do. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say I'm much more interested in tangible results from these trips and this going to London every year than how much a plane ticket costs for the mayor. I agree with you guys. It's absurd, there are other things that I don't object to the media pointing it out, but it ought not to get the kind of attention that it has, and it's just ridiculous. It's lazy on the part of journalists, frankly, to do that.
I agree.
Or somebody who's
so that's my observation.
or somebody who just wants to take a cheap shot, standing by, wants to throw rocks at the train, maybe because they didn't get to go.
Right. There you go. Maybe because their editors wouldn't pay for the ticket.
That could have been it too. Whatever the case may be. I mean, put it in the big. Let's put this in the big picture.
Yep. Well, I'll tell you, as we're coming to a close here, unfortunately, anybody else want to bring something up here? We got about 3 minutes left. Mr. Tolbert, you want to chime in?
No, I think I've bitched and moaned enough today.
Well, no, wait a minute. Now, hold on now. Mike,
we've got more for you.
Wait a minute. You're the one that brought something up, and let's go back to this past weekend. Unfortunately, all of us has sort of taken a negative tone. What is it? Observations, inside perception. Well, that went out the window here. But on a positive note, let's talk about
Florida,
Georgia.
Florida, whichever.
I don't want to
that's
take
right. Thank you.
I don't want to take your.
Thank you for
start.
The reminder. Yeah,
you do it, and then I'll add my 2 cents.
All right. Thank you for. Oh, hush, so I can.
Okay.
I watched like so many other people. I watched the game on television, and I'm pretty confident, given the high profile of that game, that people all over the country were watching it. And I got to tell you, I was as impressed by the beauty shots and the coverage of Jacksonville as I was by the way the Bulldogs played. It was awesome. The network just did a hell of a job, and it showed off this city. And when we had talked last week with Nate and Gene about the value of Florida, Georgia, staying here or moving, we talked about it in terms of money. But I got to believe that kind of coverage of Jacksonville on national television on that Saturday every October has value to it. I think that it was a great statement in my opinion, a great portrait of Jacksonville. And I had to smile the whole time.
Oh, I agree with you. And as I kind of remarked earlier before we went on the air, and that is that, to my knowledge, I don't believe there's anything close to a St. John's River in Gainesville or in Athens, Georgia, for them to be able to focus on
or
when the
beach.
games are played there, or a beach.
Well,
or a beach for that matter. You're right.
let me just tell you, as you all know, I spend a good lot of my time up in North Carolina, which is right across the state line from Georgia. So the whole state of Georgia.
Aren't we all?
So, but I can just tell you, I had folks in my little town from North Carolina who went to Georgia calling, and they knew they had not been to Jacksonville. They knew about the St. John's River, but there was a view on two different channels that kind of came from the beach and saw the bridge, and then how the lake kind of gets, how the river goes to that big lake, and how the sun hit it. They were thinking of a river or a creek or something. When they saw that, they were blown away. Now, two of those couples happen to be coming down here for Jacksonville. They're coming to Jacksonville for the holidays, which are going to be guests of my wife and I. But they were blown away, and they really now say, we want to go down and see the river. Mm-hmm. And it's just, but I agree with Mike.
I don't think we've seen any kind of national publicity highlighting the city as well as since the Super Bowl.
Oh,
the Super Bowl was phenomenal, and I think this came in a very close second place. Right. It was wonderful.
There was one of the. It's also the same thing that happens during the weekend, golf weekend.
Oh yeah,
where they do the
TPC
when they do the ocean and all that. So when you look at the ocean, you look at the St. John's, you look at 400 and 844 square miles. Let me tell you, we got a lot to be proud of. Let's just make sure that these couple dozen people who screw it up every day, let's make sure that they are the ones that set the tone for what Jacksonville's about.
You know who we ought to invite on the show one of these days? Mike Corrigan.
Yeah.
From Visit Jacksonville to talk about these kinds of things. I think Michael would be great to have on the show.
Right. Yeah.
What do you think, Mr. Tolbert?
Well, let's do it.
Okay, let's do that.
I think it's a good idea.
By the way, we do have a repeat guest coming on next week.
Right.
Can't wait for it. We've been talking about Melissa Ross, and the question being, where is she? And we're going to be talking about that with Andrew Pantazzi. I'm sorry, Melissa Nelson. I had to write it down because I was afraid I was going to say Ross. Thank you for the correction. Sorry about that, Melissa. But nevertheless, we're going to talk about Melissa Nelson's office and her office per se, not just her. And that'll be next week. Andrew Pantazzi from the Tributary will be coming back on the air with us,
right.
And I can't wait.
That's going to be good.
It's going to be good. I've had so many people, and this is true, so many people come up to me and say that show with Pantazzi was what hooked them on our program.
Yeah.
And after watching that, they said, we have not missed an episode.
Yeah.
He was that impressive.
Yeah.
Thought it was great.
Yeah.
Thank you guys very much. I failed to do this at the beginning, so please excuse me, but our program, as most of you should know by now, is brought to us by the Jacksonville Historical Society.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. And to both the donors of old and new, we want to thank for keeping our program on and helping with the expenses of this show. So until the next time, thank you all for watching us. Have a good week.
Mr. Tolbert, good to see you again, my friend.
Please tell your friends about us.
Good to see you.
Catch us on YouTube, Facebook, or on our website at mikesonmike.com. Have a good week, everybody, and thanks again for joining us.
Thanks again, guys. Appreciate it.
Mike's on Mike with Mike Hightower, Mike Tolbert, and Mike Miller can be found at your favorite podcasting platform, Facebook and YouTube. Learn more at mikesonmike.com. Join us next time for more conversations with Mike's on Mike.